Hi, and welcome to Epic Restorations. Today, we officially enter a new chapter in our restoration as we remove our 1930 barn find body from its chassis. Earlier this summer, we got a call from our friend and fellow club member, Kim. Kim's been restoring and painting the body of his 1930 two-door. With his body now painted and back on his chassis, he's graciously offered us the use of his dolly and rotisserie for our restoration. We were originally going to build our own, but when Kim offered us the use of his, we simply couldn't turn him down. This dolly and rotisserie are made of solid steel, and because they're on casters and have already been fitted for a two-door, they'll be perfect for us to use in the barn this winter. With the equipment secured on the flatbed, it was time to start work on removing the body. Back at the barn, we began by removing the rear fenders and floorboards. Our rear fenders were attached to the body with a mishmash of 7/16 and half-inch nuts and bolts, and on the front end were attached to the running boards inside the wheel well with 4 flathead screws. Not knowing how stubborn the crusty old screws, nuts, and bolts would be, we hit them with a little penetrating oil to help get things loosened up. Inside the car, the wheel well panels are pretty well shot, but we acquired some replacement panels that we can use to make them right again. Fortunately for us, the penetrating oil did its job, and within a few short minutes, we had both rear fenders off the car.
All right, now we can turn our attention back to the inside stuff.
With the fenders out of the way, it was time to move on to the floorboards. Our floorboards aren't anything special, and with all the modifications and repairs done to this car over the years, they likely aren't original to the car either. As part of our restoration, we'll eventually be installing new replacement floorboards, so we'll just yank these old ones out any way we can. The front seats of this two-door aren't original Model A seats either, and must have come out of a different car entirely, so we've set them off to the side. And while we were at Model A days this fall, we picked up some repairable original style ones that we can fix up and use in our restoration down the road. The steel plate that they were attached to will need to come out as well, so I took that out next. The rear floor pan that normally sits under the rear seat of the two-door appears to have been replaced with a piece of sheet steel with a riser hump attached to it. With the chassis of the car revealed, you can see the subrails are in really poor shape. Running down the middle of the car, angle iron has been installed to replace the 3 cross members that typically join the subrails together. This will all eventually have to come out and be replaced, but for the time being, it will serve to give the car some stability when we lift the body off of the frame. With as much as we dared to remove beforehand complete, we loaded the Model A onto the flatbed and took it back to the shop to take it apart. Back at the shop, our first order of business was to loosen and remove anything that would be in our way when we raised up the body from the frame. Our plan is to raise the body of the Model A up about a foot or so, just enough to push the chassis out from underneath it. Then, we'll grab a couple of 2x4s to support the body on the dolly and slide the dolly in underneath it. The forks of our tractor will only lift a body up so far, and according to our calculations, that would not be high enough to lift the body over the top of the shifter, so anything taller than a foot or so will have to come off. So, we began with the gear shift lever and emergency brake handle. Two 9/16" bolts connect the emergency brake lever to the shift tower. Using an air ratchet, we had them off in no time. Next up were the 6 1/2" shift tower bolts surrounding the shift tower. Next, we removed the starter. The starter sits in the way of us removing the steering column, so before we can do that, we have to remove it. The starter is held in place by 3 9/16" bolts.
There's 2 bolts. Now the trick to this is remembering to pull the dipstick out, because it will be right in the way when you pull that starter. That'll help hold the weight of it. And as you see, it's loose. And there's a little trick to squeezing it out through there. Alright. You have to get up and over. Alright, so I'm fishing it out. I gotta drop it. Got it downwards a bit and then out that way.
With the starter removed, next we unhooked the hood rods connecting the radiator to the firewall.
These off. Whoops. Well, where's that half? Here. It's got different size nuts on it. Surprise, surprise. That's loose. There, that one. It fell out. Loosen this up. We gotta loosen this one, and that is bigger, yes, of course. See, and that's not even working very well there. I pulled it right out. Okay, there's that one. So that's freed up. We've got these disconnected from the steering column. So now we're gonna pull the pitman arm and then loosen up the steering column and take it out of the way.
The last obstacle to remove is the steering assembly. To remove it, we first loosened and unbolted the pitman arm from the frame, using a pair of pliers for the cotter pin and a 5/8" wrench for the nut and bolt.
Outer key out. So we got to keep the castle nut in couple of the push the bolt through. Out. There we are. Now I'm just going to put this bolt and cotter or castle nut back into the pitman arm so we don't lose it. Yep, I think we're going to have to get the big stuff on. All right, because I also got to put a wrench on the other side, so I may get my impact and pop those out.
With the pitman arm off and swung out of the way, we used a 5/8" wrench and an impact to remove the 2 bolts connecting the steering gearbox to the chassis. And in no time at all, we had it off and sitting on the frame.
Those 2 bolts and the 2 over there. And we'll just leave the bumper brackets on as our plan, unless we have to. I don't think we have to take them off.
With our obstacles now removed, it was time to unbolt the body itself from the frame. Beginning at the back of the car, we removed the 4 half-inch bolts and nuts.
There we go.
With the rear end now loose, we moved forward to the 2 bolts in front of each of our 2 doorways. Using an impact, a ratchet, and a 9/16" socket and wrench, we had them loosened and removed in no time.
Okay. Ready? Yep. Yep.
The final 2 bolts holding the body on the frame were located in front of both doors at the bottom of the cowl, right up next to the firewall. With the 9/16" wrench and impact, we made quick work of those as well. With the body unbolted, it was time to lift it off the frame. The forks on our tractor aren't long enough to get under the full width of the car. To elongate our forks a bit, we clamped on a few 2x4s with C-clamps, and to keep them from moving around, we wrapped the forks and boards together with painter's tape. Slowly and carefully, we guided the forks underneath the top of the body. And then, the moment of truth. With the body raised up and the tractor doing the heavy lifting, George and I rolled the chassis out from underneath the body and out of the way. In order to steady the body, we put a couple of 2x4s parallel to the length of the body on our dolly and rolled it underneath it. Once we had those positioned where we wanted them, we took a few shorter 4x4 and 2x4 pieces and ran them along the back and front of the body to support it on all four sides. As you can see, this body has been modified and reinforced before, so we took advantage of the angle iron supports to help balance and line everything up before lowering the body back down on the dolly. With the body off the old chassis, a new chapter in the restoration can now begin. Over the course of the winter, and with the help of Kim's rotisserie, we can now begin working on the body, and, as you can clearly see, there's no shortage of work that we need to do. That's all part of what makes this fun, and truly what makes it an epic restoration. As for the old chassis, it's headed back to my barn to wait its turn for an as of now unannounced project that we have planned for the future. But for now, join us next time as we continue our journey restoring this 1930 Ford Model A on the next episode of Epic Restorations.